like most people, we were sitting out there and Baba came out to give his darshan. He passed by me and immediately he couldn't have walked more than a few feet away. Then suddenly he turned around. He just wheeled around. One moment he was smiling, the next moment it was a scowl on his face. And I remember leveling his index finger straight at me. He literally screamed at me. He said, "You thief! What the heck do you think you are doing out here? Get out! Thief! 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 Get out! Get out!" I was dumbfounded. I had no reaction. I could not even think.
Sandy Nat of Auburn, California, knows both the love and the seeming displeasure of Sri Satya Sai Baba. It is a compelling story with multiple highs and lows, taking him from the depths of despair to the outer reaches of the universe. Sandy Nat's story is the very first Sai Baba devotee video interview recorded by Souljourns in the summer of 1999. This interview was taped in Yuba City, California.
Many years ago, when I was in India, and I happened to be reading an English periodical where an account of a university professor had been given about his visit to Puttaparthi. I read that article. I attached no importance to it. I said, in India this is the usual thing. But somehow or the other it absorbed my interest. And I started asking myself, I said, how come that such things are possible? And in that article, he had made a reference to a book written by Arthur Osborne on the Shirdi Sai Baba. I was in the library at that time, and I went through the catalogue of books, and the book by Arthur Osborne called The Incredible Sai Baba was immediately available. I picked that book up. It's not a very big, thick book, it's a small book. But every word that I read about the life of Shirdi Sai Baba was even more incredible than what I had read in the English periodical. And I asked myself, I said, I have lived in this country for so long, and if people like, or men like the Shirdi Sai Baba have been here, and I have been totally ignorant about their existence, this merely shows a level of my great ignorance. Well, that's how it started. And so we are always perplexed, always faced life's problems with our own personal desires, or everything on a day-to-day basis. So I said, let's go to Puttaparthi. Let's go and see the Sai Baba. If nothing else, let's sort of ask him to fulfill my worldly wishes. Let's go to him, if that is what he does. That's what I went there. I went there primarily to have certain worldly wishes fulfilled, certain problems to be solved. That was the sole purpose. There was no other interest at all. So I got into the train at Calcutta. It's a long, tedious journey. I don't know how long it took. It certainly was a 3 or 4 day journey. I landed up in Puttaparthi. At that time, there was not very much in Puttaparthi.
Do you remember what year it was?
It must have been sometimes in the early 70s or somewhere around there, or maybe towards the late 60s. I don't even remember now. Perhaps 1967, for some reason it comes to my mind. We all used to sleep under the trees. There was no running water. We used to go to the nearby stream. There used to be very large crowds in those days. So I went there, and they said, I'll have to sit out in the line, and then Bob would come out and he chooses people at random whom he would give interviews. I sat there for 10, 12 days. He wouldn't even look at me. And some of the people, since the crowd was so small, so some of them were given interviews more than once. But I was completely ignored. So I said, there has got to be a purpose to it. I said, well, apart from getting my worldly wishes fulfilled, let's try to see what else he has got to say. Not that I was interested, but I said, since I'm not getting an interview, let's sort of see as to what he has got to say. So I bought a couple of books and I used to go out into the country and sit there under a tree and try to read them. It was like Greek to me. Whatever Baba had to say about the soul, karma, and so many other things. It was like Greek. I had no interest. Really, I had no interest. And then I came back. And Baba ultimately, he always takes you to the edge of the cliff, then he pulls you back. When I was more or less ready to leave, right on the last day, he called me. I went into the interview room along with other people. He was first talking with the other group of people, and he was materializing all kinds of things and giving them to people, and people were in awe. You should have seen their faces. And when it came my turn, I looked at Baba. I said, Baba, what about something for me? And believe me, I really did not even have a desire within my heart for him to materialize and give me something, even on day one. And Baba looked at me. He said, you don't need it. And he was absolutely right, absolutely right. And I can tell this, I read things about so many people having been given rings and watches and all these manifestations. They would certainly are being given by Baba for a certain purpose, for the right people, for the right cause. I understand. But in my own case, and it's the only thing I really can talk about, I personally have never attached any importance to the so-called physical manifestations. Even when I was not the least interested in things spiritual, manifestations were of no interest to me. So, in a nutshell, at the time of the interview, here I'm not going to go into too many details. I will touch upon the most important things. One of the questions which I asked Baba was, I said, Baba, all this theory of karma is based on the cycle of birth and death, rebirth. How am I to know that such a thing exists? Some religions believe in it, some others don't. I find it very difficult to believe in it. How do I know? How do I determine that for myself? You say it is so, but somehow or the other I find it very difficult to believe. And Baba, I remember, he walked right up to me and he stood before me and he started breathing very deeply. He would take in deep breaths and would say, like this, the soul comes in the body, stays in the body for some time, and then he would exhale and say, like that it goes out. Or in other words, the very process of human breath is more or less the replica of the cycle of life and death. Because our life, or the life of the body, is directly connected with the continuity of the process referred to as death. The moment we stop breathing, we die.